welcome everyone to the second session of today's talk. My name is Hafsa and I'm co-founder of Daastan. I'll be also moderating the discussion on innovative capacity building models, and we will discuss the challenges of the traditional learning models and how they impact. Amal Academy is our case study today, and to talk about this topic, we have three brilliant young speakers who will um, share their experience and also their work, which they do at Amal Academy. And before we start the discussion, I'll just briefly give an overview of what Amal Academy is so we get introduced to the background. Amal was founded by Benji Williams and Kunal Chawla after completing their MBA at Stanford University, and it has been under consistent refinement since its conception. It was founded in 2013 as an education startup funded by Stanford University, and it has transformed the lives of more than 5,000 Pakistani graduates. And it's always aspiring to do more. Their aim is to bridge the income gap in our society by developing the soft skills. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining today and taking the time out to talk on this topic. We'll start with Mohammed Ghazi. If you could just briefly introduce yourself, what you have studied, and so on. Ghazi, we couldn't really hear you, so I will jump to the can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Sahar, can you
Okay.
hear me? Okay.
Should I?
Right, Ghazi. I'm sorry. Let's
No,
rewind
that's
a little bit and go back to your
no
introduction.
problem. Sure. So I'm the curriculum manager at Amal Academy, and although my academic background is completely economics, I've been working in education for about 4 years now. And the reason why I joined Amal was because I really
Ghazi, I lost you again. Sahar, can you hear me?
Yes, Hafsa.
Okay, let's move to you and just tell us about what you have studied and why you've been working for Amal Academy. What was the motivation?
Great. So, hi everyone. This is Sahar Khaleb. I studied international business, and the reason why I joined Amal, currently I'm working as a program manager. And the reason why I joined Amal because I remember when I came back after my master's program, I was really motivated to join, sort of like NGO and work in the development sector. And luckily, I found Benji before I was going for my master's. So I knew when I came back that this is the platform where I wanted to work. And what we do at Amal, I think that for that we'll have like whole discussion session today, and definitely our audience is going to get to know what we do and how we do it. But right now, I think the only thing that we can say that we're definitely making an impact. We are trying to make a lot of lives easy out there. So that is a brief intro from my side. I hope we'll get Fuzzy back, and then definitely.
And Fatma as well. Fatma, are you with us? Fatma, can you hear me? Fatma, we cannot really hear you. Okay. Sahar, your internet is stable, right? And you can hear me as well. I think I'm going to move to the
Can you hear me
question.
now?
Oh, yes, it's breaking. Fatma, I could hear you. Hello? Anyway, Sahar, let's talk about Amal and wait for others to join in as well. I hope they do. I would like to know that in Pakistan, most of the people they belong to middle class, and
Yeah.
many students are not privileged enough to get higher education. How do you ensure at Amal Academy that these students have equal access to opportunities, or just in general, what could we do to give them these opportunities which are available for, let's say, privileged class?
Thank you so much, Hafsa, for this question. And I think there are so many examples that I can share to support this sort of like the response that I'm going to share with you. So I agree that we cannot ensure equality when we talk about quality education. Unfortunately, we have like this sort of like heterogeneous system where we have public sector and then private sector, and a lot of students they end up in a public, I would say, institute, and then the quality of education that they get over there is not at all satisfactory, and then that basically affects the sort of their professional life as well. But here at Amal, what we try to do, so the audience that we deal with, the students that we take for our training program, they're basically final year students. They are, either they're recent graduates or they're students who are either in their sixth semester or seventh semester from public sector institutes primarily. And then we help them understand the competitive job market, because obviously, it's a common sort of like trend, and this is something that is very discouraging for a lot of fellows as well, that they know that when they are going to enter in the job market, they have to compete with students from LUMS, they have to compete with students from NUST, from GK, and from a lot of other, big names. And when we are talking about a comparison between these universities versus a public sector university, so those students definitely need this assurance that that brand name or institute is not going to affect their, personal, I would say, assessment. And for that, we play our role. We make sure that students, they understand the competitive job market, they understand the recruitment process that is going on, they understand that if they want to become part of like MNCs, what are the selection criteria that they need to go through. So that is how we are, assuring sort of like equal opportunities once they complete their education. And I've had so many fellows in the past who literally who were not aware of this whole sort of like process, and that was the only lack of information which was affecting their professional life or the success that they could have gained. So through this platform, I think we have changed a lot of lives. There are fellows, like for example, I can share one example from my last batch. So PepsiCo announced an internship program, and a lot of our fellows basically applied with this sort of like hope that they'll get this chance, but they were not like sure. So we had to push them that you can definitely avail this opportunity. But at the same time, like they applied, and there were like a lot of challenges that they had to face. I've had like examples where our fellows, they got their first job in such a big name. And, they're working with PepsiCo right now. And when you hear these stories, it's sort of like a validation that whatever you're doing, it is creating an impact. And now, equal opportunity in terms of like professional life is there. You just need to provide them those opportunities and exposure that they can also gain this option. And it's not only limited to a certain class in Pakistan. So this is what we are trying to achieve.
Perfect. Kazi, you can hear me now, right? Okay.
Yes.
Since you are working in the curriculum planning for a long time, I would like to ask you, how does the innovation in Pakistani education system look like?
Okay, so first of all, I think that we have this concept that there needs to be something very, very complicated, and there has to be a huge influx of technology. But I think that essentially we should be starting very small. I feel like we should just start by first making our education student centric. I think that could be the biggest innovation that we can bring right now. And then once we've done that, we can then contextualize all sorts of different technologies that we're bringing in, tools that we're bringing in, once we've done that. So currently, I think that one thing that's really, really needed is project based learning, especially at the university level. And that is something that we do at Amal, and that has worked wonders for us. And it's such a simple concept. It does seem innovative, but it's something that isn't really applied a lot here. So I think that when you talk about innovation, it's not just about teaching methodologies, but also other tools that students need to use, like using Google Classroom, for example, or ensuring that they're up to date with the current trends in the job market, what applications are being used, what trends are being used. So I think all of those things combined can really show you a picture of what innovation would look like in education, staying up to date with what is going on globally as well as locally, and making sure that you implement it. And you don't need to implement everything all at once, but just step by step, you can do that. And I think that is what innovation would look like over here.
Right. When we talk about the education system in Pakistan, we know it's really, um, in a way, flawed and needs a lot of improvement, especially the students, because I believe that they are not really encouraged to think out of the box or develop that critical thinking, which they need afterwards in their professional life. What steps are you taking at Amal Academy to ensure this is not the case?
That's a very good question. And I think the first step that we take is to make sure that the innovation that we are implementing is relevant and digestible. So
Right.
we don't just offload our teaching methodologies or the tools that we use on our students. Okay, here they are, just make sense of them. All right. So first of all of us, I think in the first few weeks of the fellowship, we have to do a lot of extra legwork to ensure that our students and our fellows understand the technologies that we're using. And trust me, it is very difficult to do that. We have to create tutorials. We have to help them after hours, because most of our students are opening up their Google Classroom late at night when they have time, and then they're messaging us, and we have to be there to help them. So we have to be on call. We have to obviously make sure that they are comfortable with these platforms. And additionally, we use a blended learning model, which our fellows have not really used generally in their university. So we have to explain to them why we are using this. And it's really, really interesting that when fellows go through the first month, they themselves come to us and tell us that, okay, we have found this to be so much different from what we've been traditionally doing in universities. And they understand the importance of it. So I think that just to let the students know that the structure that they're coming from was a little bit flawed, just through their experience of a new or different system, is also a factor as well. But I think that it's very important to explain to them that this is relevant to their field, because if you don't contextualize it with the job market and ensure that, okay, this is something that is being practiced worldwide and it is going to help you professionally, they're not really going to buy into what you're offering them. So I think all of these things combined help us to go over some of those structural flaws. And it's difficult, but we do manage to ensure that our students and our fellows are on the same page by the end of the fellowship.
Right. Um, I believe that the traditional education these students have in their previous years before they join Amal Academy becomes a part of them. And it's really hard to take them out of that structure immediately, right? How do you ensure that that your students do not get confused? Because there should be a balance and a boundary between completely new methods of learning and what they were used to before. So, how do you ensure that they digest it without getting lost?
One of the biggest things is that there should be a level of complexity and increasing complexity. So you can't expect the students to learn some everything all at once and also learn things that are generally very difficult. So before we start, we obviously have to explain to them the the applications or technologies we're using. We do that in the orientation as well. And then once they join the fellowship, like I said, we give them tutorials, and we also help them side by side. And we then introduce things through the curriculum at certain points, ensuring that we don't we have the basic framework before we start assessing our students or sharing with them more complicated things. I think that's one thing to do. And the second is to really realize where your students are coming from. Sometimes you'll find a batch where fellows will already be very accustomed to the technologies that you're sharing with them. Sometimes they won't be, especially if they're coming from far flung areas which do not have a lot of exposure to technology. So you need to simplify things then. And you need to again make sure that you're doing extra work on that, and explaining to them why all of these technologies are important, why should they be invested in it. Because what they have studied for the majority of their educational life and academic life is the traditional rote learning, and so it's very difficult for them to unlearn it. And it's a gradual process. Even with some fellows, even after the 3 months are up, we see that they're still not 100% buying into what we're offering them. And that's okay, because we understand that there are limitations and not everybody can have that 180-degree or 360-degree change. But at least getting them to the realization that these things are important, and getting them to at least try it, even if they fail, trying it, applying for these skills. I think that's a start, and that's where we should be starting.
Impressive. Fatma, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, because my next
Great.
question is for you.
Sure.
Ghazi talked about technology and use of this technology in educational sector and what we're doing at Amal Academy as well. I would like to talk to you about the current situation in the educational sector in Pakistan due to COVID, because it has really changed almost everything. And a lot of institutions which were not previously using technology, now they are, and they're moving towards online classes, lectures, exams, everything. Being program associate, how do you think the future would look like in Pakistan?
Um, Earlier on, if you would ask me this question, I would have been skeptical. But now, as a program associate and post COVID, I actually even did one semester online. I think I'm a little more hopeful now. Because, for example, we had a lot of complaint about rote memorization, and that how, there's a lot of rote memorization going on, exams are being passed that way. But in the last semester, I saw how even my own university kind of requested us to do open book exams. We were allowed to open the book, but this time what was being assessed was our critical thinking and how we were actually applying that knowledge. So as a program associate, as I we get a really diverse batch at Amal. Every batch is a mix from different fields, and at this point, we don't. It doesn't matter anymore what degree they're doing or what field they're coming from. What matters most more is what skills have they acquired and what are they able to do with those skills. And that's what we even encourage at Amal. Whatever curriculum that we design, it's not just so that we have like an online course we teach them, but it doesn't end there. We what our like Sargazi mentioned earlier about project based learning is that are you able to apply what you've learned and what are you able to do with what you have learned, which is actually the purpose of education, right? It's not just acquiring that knowledge, it's about using it and what you're able to do. So in that sense, I think COVID has actually kind of pushed us towards that. We were kind of reluctant, but now we're being pushed into that direction with since there are so many online courses, everything is much more accessible. And now the question is, now that there's knowledge available everywhere, what are you doing with it? So I think that's what I'd like to add into this.
Um, Sahar mentioned earlier that you do focus on the students who are not so privileged, so they are able to compete with those who are and have acquired education from the top universities. In the morning, in the first session that I had today, I was talking to the educational planning coordinator at Lamak Bal Open University, and she said in our country there are about 30% of students who do not have online access to the courses, that do not even have internet, and if it's not as good, how do you ensure that those students in these remote areas can also access these opportunities that Amal is offering? Any of you would like to answer?
Okay, I think I can start with that. So, I think institutions definitely and infrastructure definitely has a huge role to play here. In certain areas, even with us, because we are having online fellowships, so there are certain things that are a requirement. Stable internet, a laptop is a requirement. So in our selection process, also we have to ensure that the students who are applying have these basic things because of our platforms, Teachable's platform, on which our students access the online courses, as well as our sessions which are being done on Zoom, as well as on Google Classroom. So you can't be an active member unless you have these things. So it's unfortunate that certain people miss out on the fellowship just because of the fact that they just don't have the infrastructure there. But that being said, there are certain students who are so passionate that they will sometimes move to a new city, or they will get access to certain facilities just so that they can be online and take our sessions. So at this stage, I think it's very, very important because through COVID-19, this was really the first shock that we all had that, okay, we need to go online and there needs to be these facilities that are there. Before that, there wasn't really a lot of pressure that, okay, for example, in far-flung areas, we need to have internet or we need to have these facilities. But now I think people are realizing the importance of these facilities because it's important even if you don't want to be a part of an organization like Amal Academy. If you realize that your university is not giving you the education or the skills that you need, there are hundreds and thousands of courses online that you can go and access and you can improve yourself. But if you can't even access those courses, then what exactly will you do? So obviously, there is the penetration that your mobile networks have. There is also the market penetration that your internet ISP providers also have. And there's obviously all of the infrastructure that needs to be there, which has to be done from the public side, right, from the government side. So I think that we do want to go back to the in-person session just because of the fact that more and more people can access those sessions without having this bottleneck, without having this hurdle of technology. But side by side, we also want to make sure that it is accessible to people who, for example, can't physically come for the in-person sessions as well. So I hope that that is the case somewhere in the future, where people from those areas can also access education and can also access all of these opportunities. But we can help them to a certain extent, unfortunately.
Right. I hope so too, that it improves in future and all those students who are missing out can also take part. Fatma, my next question is for you. As we're talking about the modifications in education system and technology taking over and institutions moving towards this online system, um, do you think it's important to also train the teachers to use these technologies? And then how do you measure the effectiveness of these teaching methodologies?
Okay, thank you so much. Answering your first part of the question, definitely it's a very, very important that the teachers are well equipped and they're well trained in these technologies and platforms. Amal is one of those places where I've seen the teachers. We don't actually call them teachers; we call them facilitators. They're very well trained, and that really makes a huge difference because I've been from a public sector university where teachers are reluctant to learn and the administration is reluctant to learn, and that affects the learning of the students because of their reluctance to learn. Even though I don't think that it's impossible to learn, if we can do it here, anyone can do it in the country. Moving forward to the next part of the question, about measuring this impact. For this, at Amal, we have quite different methods of doing it. One of them is feedback, taking direct feedback from the students. How are they able to use it? Is it even helping them? And another thing is that being very clear of the objectives. What are you like trying to achieve? What are you trying to teach? And what's it supposed to do, right? So when you're clear of the objectives, it's much easier to kind of measure, is it, is it being delivered? Are the students able to learn what you're trying to teach them? Of course, we have feedback, and then we effectively, look at that feedback and we try to incorporate it. So there's like a whole loop going on all the time. And of course, there's always ways to measure it. There's like there's a lot of data that you can collect, and especially with the digital platform, for example, Google Classroom, the Google Sheets that we have, there's a lot of ways of measuring it. There's, it's all about having a will, whether you want to and whether you don't, right? In the
Right.
past year, that is something I've really witnessed, is that as human beings, we're and the technology that we have, it's very flexible. You can come up with things out of thin air. So it's just a matter of whether you want to do it or not. You can come up with ways. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. So we are talking about the willingness to do certain things. Um, I think teachers also have to be willing to learn these new methods and so on. And I think their role is now changing. As you said, you call them facilitators. How can we support this new role of teachers given this post COVID or current COVID situation?
Great. When it comes to supporting them, it's very important that they're given training. They're given space to pause and reflect about what they're doing. They're also given opportunities to learn. It's very important to not forget that they're also learners. If they need to, like I said, we don't use the word teacher, we use the word facilitator. We're facilitating other people's learning. We're not taking it by the nose. So we're also learners. We're just one step ahead, and it's important to, when it comes to supporting our role, it's just important that we also have opportunities where we're on top of the game, and we're learning as soon as things come. We're updated, and that's what the support that's the support we could actually use. Like, we're given time off, we're given time to like learn and move forward with that.
Right. I absolutely agree. Sahar, we'll come towards you because you are senior program manager. Um, what do you think about our educational institutes? Do you really think they are preparing the students for the demands of the workplace? Or how can we do this if they are not?
Hafsa, unfortunately, I would say that no. The answer would be no, because the reason is we feel like so we have our institutes, which is more sort of like a prison for our students, where they're learning all of the theoretical concepts, and they have absolutely no idea where they're going to apply those concepts. I've had so many fellows who would tell us that we have applied for so many places, but we're not getting any response at all. They are unable to understand what is wrong with their resume. They are unable to understand that they need to submit a cover letter as well. So all of the things which they need to follow in a professional setting, they are not aware of those things. They are learning so many concepts related to accounting, related to marketing, related to, I would say, finance. But when it comes to this basic, sort of like code, that how they need to get into those organizations, how they need to prove that they have the required skill set. I think over there are institutes that are sort of like lacking in providing the basic training. And at Amal, what we do, so there are like different modules which we provide to our fellows. So first is more about, that you need to first discover your potential. You need to identify what exactly you need to do. What are your career aims? So it's more about their life journey, which we help them discover. And then in the second module, it's more about all of the things that they're going to, require to enter in the professional setting. For example, resume, for example, cover letter, which our education institutions, traditional, learning methodologies are unable to actually sort of like provide to our fellows. And then in the second module, after we train them with all of these basic requirements that they need, then in the third one, we tell them that, now you need to start exploring all of the possibilities and all of the opportunities out there. So if I talk about, I would say, institutions, which are private institutions. Again, there is. I know that I'm, comparing these two platforms, but again, there is this sort of like disparity in our education
Right.
system, which we need to talk about. So if we talk about like private institutions, they have their career counseling sessions. They have like proper departments where they train their students that these are the opportunities out there. That is how you need to apply. But in the public sector, unfortunately, that platform is missing. That is not there. So students, they do not get the required sort of like guideline. But at Amal, we provide like sort of like career counseling. We have like one-on-one sessions with our students where we're trying to fill this gap, and we're trying to help them understand that what is the process and how they need to go through it.
Right. When we talk about the process and everything, I think that comes after you have realized or decided what you want to do and where you want to go, which field you want to follow. And we know that every student is different, every student is unique, and every learner has a different capacity. Some are quick learners, some take time. How are you helping the students at MO to realize their potential and then, therefore, go further with it?
So that's a very interesting question, Hafsa, because so we do not tell them what their potential is. I read it somewhere and I wanted to share it with everyone. So like, great teachers are the ones who tell you where to see, but don't tell you what exactly to find out. So
Right.
we just spark that sort of like curiosity. We tell them that, these are the opportunities out there. Explore those options. Figure out, your potential as well, because most of the times the reason why we're not aware of our potential because we never tried, we never got out of that comfort zone. And I think that is the first thing that we train in this fellowship, in our platform as well. We tell them from the very beginning that you're going to feel uncomfortable, and that is absolutely fine. We want you to show a very sort of like positive attitude towards this new experiences, and that is how we help them understand that you need to explore all of the good and all of the bad side of your personality, I would say. So it's like through different activities. We have our life maps in our fellowship. We have a lot of other activities. And through those experiences, our fellows basically, they kind of like figure out their true potential. I think Ali wanted to add something.
I mean, I can add a few points over here, although I think, Sahar, you've covered everything pretty extensively. But just like what you mentioned earlier, Hafza, like everybody has a different capacity to learn and they have different aptitudes. And I mean, I cannot tell you how many times this happened that in a batch of 60 people, at least 45 to 50 will say that they're stuck in the wrong degree and they don't want to
Right.
pursue this further. This is not their passion. And unfortunately, we have these three criterias that we want just everybody to fill in. Either you're a doctor, or you're an accountant, or you're an engineer. And people don't really look at what skill set is, what the aptitude is. So we need to make sure that how are we going to get those fellows out of this now, because they're not good at what they're doing because they don't have any interest in it. And when they go out into the market, they're going to compete with so many people who will definitely be much better at this particular subject or their degree. So how do we ensure that they're also at that level while side by side pursuing other things that they're passionate about? So I
Right.
think it's done through a lot of introspection, as well as counseling, as well as talking to them, and through the things that Sahar mentioned in the curriculum as well.
Right. When is the next batch opening up at Amal Academy?
We're going to start in August, the summer semester, and the applications are still open. So if anybody wants to apply, they can go to amalacademy.org and register there.
Perfect. I think that was all. Thank you very much for your time and for such an insightful discussion. I hope people will contact you. I'll also leave the contact details in this post, so in case they want to check out the course and apply.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Hafsa. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
It was an honor and a pleasure to talk to all of you young people who are doing so much in their capacities to bring a change.
Thank you so much, Afza, from my side as well.
All right, then I wish you all a good day. And if we would have questions, we'll just direct them back to you.
All right. Thank you. You too.
All right, bye
Have a
bye.
great day. Bye bye.
And you, bye.